The first thing I noticed about the alien woman was that she refused to scream. The evacuation deck was chaos, metal screaming as it twisted, warning klaxons howling, gravity flickering like a dying heartbeat. Civilians were running in every direction, some slipping as the deck plating tilted under intermittent thrust failure. Smoke rolled through the corridor in thick, choking waves. And in the middle of all that, she lay pinned beneath a collapsed support beam, pale blue blood soaking into the floor, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. She saw me before I reached her. Her eyes, too large for a human face, silver-ringed and burning with pain, locked onto mine. I expected fear, or desperation. Instead, she shook her head once. "No," she rasped in heavily accented standard. "Do not stop. You will die." I slid to my knees beside her anyway. "Yeah," I coughed, bracing my shoulder against the beam. "That's kind of the theme today." She tried to push me away with one trembling hand. Her fingers were long, jointed differently than mine, her skin marked with faint bioluminescent lines that pulsed erratically, probably shock. The beam had crushed her lower body, armor twisted inward like torn foil. "I am not worth." The deck lurched violently. Somewhere behind us, a bulkhead ruptured, sucking two fleeing passengers into the void before emergency fields snapped shut. I didn't wait for her to finish. I planted my feet, exhaled, and pushed. The beam didn't move. I gritted my teeth and pushed harder, muscles screaming as adrenaline flooded my system. The ship groaned in protest, as if mocking my effort. Then the gravity cut out entirely. For half a second, everything floated, and the beam shifted. I shoved with everything I had, twisting my body, using the momentary weightlessness to lever the wreckage aside. The beam slid just enough for me to grab her harness and yank her free as gravity slammed back on. We hit the deck hard. She gasped, an actual scream this time, as pain ripped through her body. I hauled her over my shoulder without asking permission and ran. The Halcyon drift didn't survive. Half the station ring detonated when the reactor finally breached. The blast painted the stars in white fire and scattered debris across 3 orbital lanes. But the emergency shuttle did.
Barely.
I collapsed into the pilot's seat, hands shaking as the autopilot locked in a blind jump. The alien woman lay strapped into the co-pilot's harness, unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. Only when the stars stretched into hyperspace did I let myself breathe. I'd been a maintenance contractor, one of the humans hired to keep multi-species stations functional because we were cheap, adaptable, and apparently expendable. No rank, no medals, no heroic training. Just a guy who couldn't walk past someone dying. When she finally woke, it was 6 hours later. I was rehydrating nutrient packs when I felt movement. I turned to see her eyes open, focused, alert, dangerous. She studied me silently. I raised both hands.
"Hey."
"You're safe. Ship's gone, but we're not." She looked down at her bandaged torso, then at the crude medical sealant I'd applied to her crushed leg. Her bioluminescent markings dimmed, then flared. "You are human," she said flatly. "Last I checked." Her jaw tightened. "Why?" I blinked. "Why what? Why did you save me?" No accusation. No gratitude. Just genuine confusion. I shrugged. "You were there." "That is not an answer." I leaned back against the bulkhead. "It is where I come from." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes, fingers curling slowly against the restraints as if grounding herself. "I am Salith of the Keeler Ascendancy," she said at last. "Third Blood Noble. Tactical liaison to the Coalition Defense Council." I whistled softly. "So important." Her eyes snapped back to mine. Important enough that my death would have been considered acceptable. That wiped the humor off my face. She continued, voice steady but heavy. My species does not risk assets irrationally. You did. Yeah, I said quietly. Humans do that. The shuttle drifted in silence for a while after that. When coalition rescue forces finally intercepted us, everything changed. The moment Salith was identified, the tone shifted from concern to calculation. Medics flooded the shuttle, security teams formed perimeters, officials began arguing over jurisdiction before she was even off the stretcher.
No one looked at me.
Until she reached out and grabbed my wrist. The entire hangar froze. Do not separate us, she said, her voice weak but commanding. He stays. A senior coalition officer frowned. Lady Salith, this human is a civilian contractor. He can be debriefed later. Her grip tightened.
No, she said.
He will accompany me. The officer hesitated, then bowed. That was my first clue that saving her had consequences. The Keeler ascendancy didn't do hospitals the way humans did. Their recovery sanctums were quiet, dimly lit spaces filled with harmonic fields and living crystal architecture that hummed softly as it repaired tissue. I was given a chair and told, politely but firmly, not to leave. Salith healed faster than expected. Too fast. Within days, she was sitting upright, her leg encased in a biomechanical brace that glowed faintly with energy. And every day, she asked me questions. About humans. About why we risked ourselves for strangers. Why our soldiers extracted wounded allies under fire even when it made no tactical sense. Why our ships stayed behind to cover evacuations they could escape from. I didn't have good answers. We just don't like leaving people behind, I said once. She stared at me for a long time after that. Then the question stopped. And the visitors began. Representatives, admirals, strategists, Keeler elders whose presence made entire rooms fall silent. They argued in low tones outside her chamber.
About me.
About precedent. About cultural contamination. One night, she asked me to stay after the guards rotated out. I owe you a debt, she said. You don't, I replied automatically. Her eyes hardened. Do not insult me. In my culture, survival creates obligation. Okay, I said carefully. Then you're welcome? She almost smiled. There is something I must ask of you, she continued. And it will not be well received. I leaned back. You've got my attention. She inhaled slowly. I wish to bind my future command to human presence. I stared. Come again. When I assume my seat on the Ascendancy War Council, she said, I will formally request a permanent human advisory detachment. Not as auxiliaries. Not as contractors. As equals. The words hit me harder than the beam ever had. That's huge, I said. Your people don't even trust half the coalition. They trust strength, she replied, and sacrifice. She met my gaze. You saved me when logic said you should not. That act revealed a strategic variable we have misunderstood. I laughed once, short and disbelieving. You're basing interstellar policy on me being an idiot? She shook her head. No. On you being human. The backlash was immediate. Keeler traditionalists called it reckless. Coalition members accused her of favoritism. Some humans thought it was a political stunt. Then the border wars flared up again. An enemy fleet breached a civilian system, one with mixed-species colonies and minimal defenses. Coalition response times were too slow. Keeler doctrine dictated withdrawal to preserve assets. Salith commanded the task force. And she broke doctrine. She ordered her ships to hold the line, long enough for evacuation vessels to escape. Human captains, embedded as observers, didn't hesitate. They stayed. They improvised. They died buying time. And the civilians lived. When the dust settled, something fundamental had shifted. The battle footage spread across networks, killer warships maneuvering to shield refugee transports, human pilots flying crippled craft into enemy fire to draw attention away from escape vectors. For the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as expendable labor or reckless mercenaries, but as something else. Guardians. The War Council convened in emergency session. Salith stood before them, her brace gone, her posture unbowed. "My request stands," she said. "Human presence in ascendancy command structures. Not because they are perfect, but because they will stay when others retreat." Silence followed. Then one elder spoke. "Who will lead this detachment?" Salith didn't look at me when she answered. "The one who reminded me what survival is meant for." Every head turned. I nearly choked. I didn't agree to. She finally looked at me, silver eyes steady. "I know," she said softly. "That is why it must be you." Weeks later, as I stood aboard a Keeler flagship, now bearing both ascendancy sigils and a human emblem, I realized something. I hadn't saved her because she was important. She'd become important because someone saved her. And the request she made, the one no one expected, changed the way the galaxy measured strength. Not by who survived,
but by who chose not to walk away.
The weeks that followed were unlike anything I had ever imagined. The Human Advisory Detachment Salith requested became reality. I wasn't just a civilian observer anymore. I had authority, responsibility, and access to resources I barely knew how to use. Yet I never felt more alive. Salith and I spent long hours in the command chambers, reviewing strategy, coordinating defenses, and sometimes just talking. Not about politics. Not about war. About the small things humans notice. The colors of alien sunsets. The way a ship hums when its engines are perfectly balanced. The way a species' ritual can reveal more about courage than any weapon ever could. It was during one of those quiet moments that she finally spoke of the debt she felt. "You saved me without question," she said, staring out the observation window at the swirling nebulae. "I cannot repay that in the ways your species expects. But I can ensure no human who acts as you did will be ignored again. I can change the rules." I shrugged, trying to appear casual even though my chest felt tight. I didn't do it for recognition. Her bioluminescent markings flared softly, a sign I had come to understand as a mixture of emotion and thought processing. "Then I will take it for both of us. Humanity will have a place here, in the heart of decisions that shape millions of lives." The first council session with humans officially embedded was tense. Traditionalists muttered and gossiped, questioning our judgment, our loyalty, even our right to speak. But every time they doubted, Salith looked at me. And in that look was a promise. She would not let fear or politics dictate courage. During the next crisis, a sudden attack on a neutral colony, our combined strategies turned the tide. Humans coordinated civilian evacuations with killer military precision, holding off superior enemy forces long enough for countless lives to be saved. The galaxy watched. Records were broadcast, analyzed, and debated in council chambers across systems. Humanity had earned respect, not through conquest, not through dominance, but through sacrifice, through refusing to leave those in danger. Salith did not need to announce it, but I could feel her pride as the reports rolled in. She had asked for something no one expected, and it had worked. She had changed her society in subtle but irreversible ways. And she had done it because one human who could have walked away did not. Months later, I walked the ship's observation deck with her. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the reinforced glass, their distant light reflecting in her silver-ringed eyes. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly, meaning my entire life up to that point, the accidents, the jobs, the near-deaths that led me here. She tilted her head, considering. Regret?
No.
I am indebted, but it is not a burden. And you? She reached for my hand, a simple gesture, yet it carried weight across the void of cultures and expectations. You are the variable I did not predict. That is the rare thing. Valuable. Necessary. For a moment, silence stretched between us, comfortable, unforced. Then she leaned slightly, her voice softening. And yet there is one thing I must ask. I swallowed. Name it. Continue to remind them, she said, eyes bright with that faint silver glow, that true courage is not measured by weapons or ranks, but by choices. Even small, seemingly insignificant choices. Choices to help.
To stay.
To care when no one else will. I laughed softly. You mean keeping me? She smiled, small, private, but radiant.
Yes.
That is exactly it. The galaxy would continue to test us. New crises, new wars, new decisions that could shatter systems. But now, humans had a voice at the table. And Salith, the one I had saved, was a leader who would never forget why strength mattered, and who truly deserved it. As the flagship glided into orbit above a recovering colony, I realized something profoundly simple and terrifying. The moment I chose to save her, I had changed not only her fate, but the fate of countless others across light years. And in return, she had saved something in me too, the part of me that believed a single choice could matter. I turned to her, the silver-eyed warrior who had once been pinned beneath a beam and now commanded fleets, and I felt the gravity of the promise between us. Not a promise of love, nor glory, nor fame, but something infinitely rarer. Trust forged in fire, recognition of courage, and the knowledge that one human could indeed make a galaxy-wide difference. She watched me, and without words I understood. This was the beginning, not the end. A new order, a new understanding, a new path where humanity could stand shoulder to shoulder with the mightiest civilizations, not as tools, not as expendable lives, but as equals, as guardians, as friends. And in that quiet, starlit moment, I knew that no matter what came next, I would never walk away again. The stars outside burned cold and distant, yet somehow we had made them feel a little warmer.